Okay. I made 2 videos today as a continuing conversation with my good online friend Jose Gonzalez, Master Jose Gonzalez from Trenton, Hamilton, New Jersey, my old stomping grounds. And this causes me to think about an earlier conversation we had that resulted in a video where we talked about benefits of slow versus fast training. So I'm going to continue. There are consequences to slow and fast training, and there are types of slow and fast training. So slow training by yourself is completely different than slow training with another person. If you're shadow boxing, for example, very few kickboxers and boxers especially who like shadow boxing, very few of them shadow box full speed, full power in the air. It's not that great for your joints. Oftentimes they'll start off slow, moving slow, and start flicking the jabs out with a little snap and then adding the movements, right? And then they might intensify the last 30 seconds when they hear that bell for the last 30 seconds of a 3-minute round, right? And then they might do a couple rounds really fast, and then they might do a couple rounds really slow. It's often useful to start slow and move to full speed and then back to slow. It's a way to rev up the engine and get your body ready for moving full speed, say if you're going to spar later or hit that bag. Then there's also the fact that you can fine-tune things that you're not sure of if you move slowly, especially if you have a coach. If I'm throwing a right cross, and as I throw it, that elbow leaks out, and it kind of leaks out and comes back in. It's like if it had leaked out and it came in as a hook, it would be powerful. If it had stayed and I pivot and I strike, it's powerful. If I go all the way out here and kind of loop it in, I'm throwing some energy out that way and then have to bring it in back into a straight line. I've consumed some of the energy I'm generating before I even get to my target, right? So, if you have a coach and you're moving slow, he's like, hey, you're letting your elbow out. Bring your elbow in, hand up a little bit. Do that again slow. Let me see what you're doing. All right, elbow, yeah, nah, that's right. Do it again, all right? So that's one thing. It can help you refine form. It can help you refine biomechanics. It can help you move more efficiently in a less telegraphic manner with more power. It's actually not should you train slow sometimes. It's obligatory for you to train slow, especially when someone's watching your form. Or when no one's watching your form and you're watching your form. Now, training slow with a partner, this is kind of tough for many of the younger martial artists to get, because the MMA paradigm and the sport-based paradigm are very different than many of the classical paradigms. So the classical paradigm was we need to throw moves that will debilitate, incapacitate the type of people we're going to encounter, and we may have to really hurt someone. We may have to hurt, maim, or kill someone because of what we have to do to survive. So if you look at China's history, China was occupied by various peoples: the Turks, the Manchus, the Khitans, the Mongols. They were surrounded by very rough, tough, nomadic peoples who were very militarized and who lived very harsh lives, and who sometimes, climate change and different things would cause droughts, famines. And, so if you're like these tough, armed, militaristic, nomadic people who have advanced weaponry and tons of cavalry, you're like, well, we could starve, or we could go raid those people over there that seem to have a bunch of stuff. They're farmers. They got food. They're not starving. Hell, there's a million ways that you could rationalize what they had to do, what they felt they had to do. So the Chinese, once in a while, when they would be conquered by these people, if classical kung fu actually is quite violent. Jabbing someone in the eye, and then grabbing that testicle, right? And then when they bend over, doubled over in pain, you grab that head and you knee it, you maintain a grip on the chin, and you throw them by their head and by their chin, hopefully snapping their neck or permanently injuring them. It's a pretty radical thing to do. I mean, this is the kind of thing you would do to a people that you had a long-standing hatred and conflict with, and who may have taken your sovereignty and your freedom from you, right? Or, you've heard the stories of training for revenge. Someone killed my father, so I'm going to learn Kung Fu. I'm going to fight my way through the castle to get to the inner sanctum, and I'm going to kill the evil warlord. It's a movie scenario, but it's actually, believe it or not, for them it was actually a real life thing quite often, right? So when you train slow with a partner, you're often having a slow attack come in, and then you actually touch the throat. You actually sometimes hit and move the person by hitting their jawbone, their temple. If you're not don't have a visual reference for that, I have some videos where I'm doing something like that. Also, the Kung Fu Sansu people, demonstrate it. It's a huge part of their training, where there's some contact in their blows. And remember, the systems weren't designed for sparring and dueling. They were designed often for ambushes and desperate situations, right? So that's another thing. Training slow tends to spare resources of the body, bring you out of an adrenal state, bring you in a meditative state, whereas training fast puts you in an adrenal state and uses resources of the body, right? You can only execute so many fast combos in the air and even on bags without putting wear and tear on the joints. Once you're done with that, you need to repair. And the way you repair is rest, nutrition, sleep. But then there's also another option. The fourth option is Chinese medicine and herbs. Chinese medicine, herbology, acupuncture, moxibustion, and Chinese bodywork is one of the oldest bodies of sports medicine around. Okay? Exercise for longevity was a huge part of Chinese culture for a long time. And their physical culture, the martial art culture, developed concurrently with their medical culture, right? And yes, these things existed in Europe and the Mideast, but European culture, for most of the rank and file, you don't see peasants, for example, going out in the fields and exercising in their 40s and 50s. In Europe, you really don't read about it. In the Middle East, you hear about. I've read some texts. For example, Avicenna's Canon of Medicine I've read, and he talks about some exercises and suitable exercises for people 35 and 40, and he talks about running, exercises with a mace. He talks about wrestling being a fantastic exercise, even for older people, right? So it is there, but I mean, the Chinese, they're like, here are exercises to do when you're 70 years old, right? So if you're doing a lot of fast training, I highly recommend getting massage, acupuncture, finding a reputable and skilled, experienced Chinese herbalist or Chinese medical doctor, male or female. There's quite a few fantastic ladies out there. There's quite a few, Caucasian, Black, Latino. The information has been transferred. For example, Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, they had a fantastic knowledge base they were transferring. So that's one thing. Slow training also allows you to work the skills that you often, are risky. All right. Brings us to another principle. Okay, the principle of incentive. So you develop those things that you have an incentive to. So, for example, Dana White, UFC, they have these extra checks. They have these extra $1,000 bonuses they give for submission of the night, knockout of the night, right? So what does that tell you? They felt a need to incentivize both striking and submissions, right? So if you're a young fighter going in the UFC, and you're particularly good at submissions, you practice them because you're like, well, not only could I win the fight, but if I do it well, if I do it skillfully and in a almost a showmanship manner, I get an extra $1,000, even if I lost that, even if the win wasn't that great, right? Same thing with a knockout, if you have a good knockout. So what you see people doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of Muay Thai, a lot of boxing, a lot of the sport-based striking arts, right? Now, if you allowed this in MMA, which you don't, and if you incentivize it, if you had like groin kick of the night, $1,000 bonus for the guy that lands a groin kick and makes the other person double down in pain, you would see groin kicks working in MMA. Okay, if you had joint kick of the night, see what I'm saying? Right? People would practice it and they'd score more with it. It wouldn't just be John Jones doing oblique kicks and low side kicks. It would be, everybody be doing them because they're trying to, not just win the match, but get that $1,000. Right? So what if you had hammer fist of the night, palm strike of the night, right? $1,000 bonus for someone that lands the best hammer fist. All of a sudden, all MMA fighters would be like, hammer fists are great, palm fists are great. Let me learn some traditional gung fu that specializes in it, right? White grain gung fu and Wing Chun and San Tzu would be incorporated into the standard MMA curriculum, right? Or techniques from it. See, so but then for instance, groin kicks and joint kicks and eye jab of the night are just not feasible. They're inhumane. They're unsportsmanlike. They ruin people. So that's, I'm just saying something absurd to make a real world point, right? So if you can't train something full speed, full tilt, full resistance against a partner, then what you can do is you can isolate it and practice it slowly against a partner, right? In cooperative, and then later maybe semi-cooperative manner. And then, because you've hardwired the movement and you've made some contact and you've slowed it down enough that you can make contact and you can position without harming your partner, when you get that adrenaline dump as combat, this thing you've done over and over slow will speed up, because that's what adrenaline does. It increases speed. I'm going to focus a little bit on what Jose Gonzalez told me sparked that conversation, but that's going to be the next video.